I'm still cleaning up the cable zoo behind me. You have to bear with me. New space. I've got guitars everywhere. You thankfully can't see that. Well, not the guitars, I mean the mess that's behind me. DJ deck, piano, guitars. Thankfully the drums are downstairs. Whoop. Yeah, we can breathe a little bit. Before, when I had everything in one space, it was quite claustrophobic. Anyway, I mentioned the cable zoo. I did. I turned the computer off this time as well, so no funky noises. Anyway, all right, let's get into it. Welcome back to another what are we calling again? The art of mixing. Another breakdown. We are going to have a look at one of what I like to call my signature moves when I am mixing and doing things on the controller. So on the controller, the decks. And this is something that I frequently like to do when I am mixing, when I'm performing, and it's something that I hope brings you inspiration to try out and have confidence in. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and you're able to have more freedom in the way that you mix, in the approaches that you can take. You don't have to take necessarily all the old school techniques, even though some of them are fantastic in their own right. It's also good to apply some modern techniques into mixing, and I strongly feel that this is one of them. Now, like I mentioned in the first one, manual beat matching is very, very important. I hope I'm not too high. I think we're good. Manual beat matching is very, very important because it gives you the freedom to adjust the tempo of the piece logically. But if you sync the tempo, then essentially you are locked in to that tempo when you are mixing into the next piece. Now, when you are generally mixing into the next piece, that's fine. But if you want to adjust data, if you're synced in, then you can't do that. So you have to switch off and then manually adjust. Now, I prefer having the sync function off. That's just how I started mixing, and that's just how I continue to do it. Let me just double check. All good. So then make sure that it's recording. I finish this off and then I press record. It's happened to me before, many times. I've also kicked the camera stand far too many times. When I've got the perfect camera angle, I will get everything set up and then like awesome, and then walk and then kick it and then I have to start all over again. Just the pleasures of the trade. Anyway, let's keep going. So this is really important. And for example, if you have a track at 135 BPM, you can manually bring it up to 135. And not only that, but you can go crazy with it. I love doing that. Not often, but when it's like 150 and the track's at like 100, you can change the tempo drastically to 150. and it creates some wild stuff. And you can do this through the function on the, I believe it is the vinyl settings just above or just near the manual tempo. And you can adjust it to, I believe it is the rate of the spin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have 16 and you have the wide function. You have a +6, +12, I believe. Let me just double check. Yes, I'm standing up again. Okay, so above the master tempo, you have the tempo on this particular model, on the Pioneers, the XDJ. You have the master tempo, and above that you have the tempo, which is at +6, 10, and I think it was 16, and then you have wide. And if you click that wide function, then that can really create some awesome flexibility. You just have to train yourself on this manual tempo matching, and by that your thumb and your fingers and everything, you get used to it and you can become quite fine in your calibration in how you set the tempo. So really important skill to learn. I would encourage you to from the get-go be doing that, and it just becomes normal, just like this very squeaky chair. I swear this one's even worse than the drum stool. Ah. Okay, so there we're just checking the cue point that I've selected. We're just checking on the headphones like I mentioned before. This approach is essentially on the fly, so we are just refreshing our mind on that cue point. What is it that I've am wanting to do, and how am I wanting to transition into this? That's on my mind. And once we've got that, then we can have a sense of reassurance and flexibility in how we go forward. Okay, so before we get to the signature move, this is something that I also really enjoy doing, and is, I guess you could call it a sort of signature. I don't know what else to call it. Something that I like to do or frequently as well is do multiple effects together. This is something I learned through creating music, through mixing music. It is this approach of getting a reverb and shoving it into a delay, or vice versa, or aggressively manipulating the EQ. And then putting it into reverb and then putting it into delay and seeing what that does. Seeing what a lot of information can do when you put it through a compressor, not just one signal, but multiple signals going through one source. And with that same token, I apply that to my perspective on mixing. And with that token, I use the onboard effects. I use the noise effects, the white noise, the filters, the space effect, which I really like, and I couple that with the delay, with the classical reverbs, and then I can adjust a quarter, an eighth, a 16th, and you can really develop a unique build or climax into the transition. And that's what we're doing here. Cool. Now, one last thing I'd like to mention is right here. Now, you can activate the slip function on this model, which is just above where the Q and play buttons are, and just above here below the below the yellow flashing buttons, if you put it simply for you guys. This function is fantastic because essentially what it allows us to do is have the cue points that we've chosen, and we can play them in tangent with the continuation of the piece. So the piece can continue, but it's also then activating your cue point as a second layer. So if you have, in this case, you have a particular sort of vocal line at the beginning of a cue point, or a particular sort of accent at that cue point, then you can use that, click on that slip function, and allow the track to play while you're adding that in. So again, it's just creating this momentum, it's creating this build into that transition. So this particular effect, is creating a particular cadence in the vocal in that start of that cue point, and I click on this function, and then instead of it going to that cue point and stopping it, it continues playing, but then I'm able to activate that, demonstrate with my hands. I'm able to activate it, and then underneath the cue point can continue repeating itself as many times as I play it while it's playing, and you can create something unique from that. So you can press it and you can let that section play underneath, and it goes into the next transition. So let's have a look. Here we go. So essentially what we're doing is we are building as much as we can. We're bringing in that next track, and then we're quickly switching off the fader and straight into that next track. This requires, like I mentioned, confidence and you feeling the piece, you being together with the music. You can't be on your phone waiting for the next track to finish so you can mix in the next piece. You have to be there, you have to be present, you have to be with your audience and in the mix. You have to be knowing what's happening. What time is it? Who to come? Sometimes in these situations, I will have additional effects running. So I might have the space on the one that I'm preparing slightly with a 45-degree angle. I might have other effects that I have placed in, waiting to go. I might even have the low end, or a partial amount of the low end out of the next track that I am wanting to do this technique with. Again, all this helps just to smooth that transition. Sometimes I find that, doing this with all that low end information, when you bring all this information in all of a sudden, can be a bit harsh, can be a bit much. So removing some of that low end, allowing it to develop itself, and then bringing it back in is also nice. And it can also create a unique experience for the audience because people are expecting that low end, and if it isn't there, it draws people's attention, and you can be like, oh, what's going on there? And you can create something interesting with that approach. But here, from the looks of things, we've kept it pretty simple from what I can remember. And we're just doing a straight cut into the next one. So building I haven't taken out any of the low end. I've added in some effects, and we're going straight into that hard transition because I felt that it could work. What time is it? Because you have this, what time is it? There's no particular low end. Excuse me one second. There's no particular low end information or very little in that, so you can get away with it. And it gives you that space. You have all these effects around it that you've accumulated through this build-up. And you switch over, you have the tail end of all the effects dissipating, and then you have essentially, a bar or so of what time is it, and then you have enough time to cut out all the effects and create a nice, beautiful tail for when that new section comes in. And here it comes again. The revenge of the computer. It's been asking me to do an update for ages now, and I am a big no on regular updates because all the softwares and everything, they take time to update. They're not as quick as Windows and everything else. But damn, they're like super aggressive when it comes to updating. It's like you said no. And then it's like, turning on by itself. It's doing its own thing, like forcing you to update. I'm like, I don't want to update. Leave it alone. Welcome to the life of Valarijex. So there you go. It's a shorter clip this time. I did want to do a bit of a shorter one for you here, just to get this message across and show you one of my sort of key things I like to do in a mix. Again, this is something that does take time to learn. It's not gonna come overnight. This takes time to figure out. It takes ear training. It takes time to understand, what songs work well together. It isn't just about adding a crap ton of effects and then just moving on into another random track and covering everything up. It's about adding texture. It's about adding stuff that complements the piece. It's very easy to overwhelm something. It's very easy to make it very technical. What I am wanting to do with this is give you more of a mindset and approach to mixing, and apply some of the ideas that I share with you here into your own mixing. Instead of is this at 1%, 2%, 3%, or change this setting, do this. I'm wanting to change the perspective on this concept of DJing, this mixing, and allowing a more free-form approach to how we incorporate music. And I feel that by presenting it like this, it gives you a bit more of a philosophical as well as a practical application. I don't think that was too much of a tangent. I don't want this to become Confessions of an Artist breakdown of the art of mixing. Anyway, there you go. It is something I absolutely love to do, but don't be too hard on yourself. It takes time to figure out. I'm still plugging away, always wanting to get better, figuring out how to do things better, how to do things differently, how to continually improve the way I approach mixing. So give it a shot. I'd love to hear how you go with it, and just have the confidence in of approaching this technique. And that's key. If you're unsure about it and you don't want to do it and you know how this is gonna, there's so many different, don't think about everything that can happen. Think about you just enjoying the music and vibing with it and having confidence in this transition. Thank you so much for joining me for another breakdown episode. I shall catch you in the next one. And we shall continue our beautiful journey with my Skynet computer. Alright. Bye-bye.